Hey people of the VC, it's Andy Cloudy Milder, and this is a Ripping Metal episode 2, a series of videos where I am trying to reconnect with my record collection. A lot of things come out of the inbox, I show them in updates, they go on the shelf, and I tend to find that I'm mainly listening to the new music coming in and neglecting what I have in the main part of the collection. So the drawback of vinyl, obviously, is you can only play it on a record player. And I don't spend my entire life in this room, although it feels like I do during lockdown. But I only have the opportunity to listen to records for a certain small time of the day, and I've got more records than I'll ever be able to really get to know that well just through playing the record itself. So I've taken it upon myself to pick out 5 albums at a time, reconnect with those records, play them 2-3 times, maybe even just once if I don't really find I don't really enjoy it that much. But also at the same time, I've got my hi-fi hooked up to my PC, and I make as good a copy as I can that I can carry around on my little media player that I've shown before, and so the album's available to me to really get to know better in the car or just when I'm out and about. So today's 5 records, a bit of a mixed bag. Let's dive in. So the first one is this. This is Geared and Primed by the Royal Court of China. Now, Royal Court of China started off as more of a sort of alternative rock band. Their first album is, I do have it, but it was a bit of a surprise. It wasn't like this one at all. But they kind of split after that, and 2 of the guys wanted to progress more with the alternative side, and 2 of the guys wanted to progress more with the sort of the hard rock side. The hard rockers decided to keep the name, and they released this album in 1989. This is a UK pressing on A&M Records. But it still has a little bit of that alternative rock element to it, but also some hard rock and a little bit of sleaze in there as well. This is 1989 after all, and you can tell kind of by the look at them as well. It's got a couple of good songs in it. I reckon this is about 6.5 out of 10. I remember it enjoying it more and thinking more highly of it before I pulled it out. Now maybe I was just when it was new, or perhaps I wasn't necessarily in the right frame of mind, but I had no idea when I put it on what it would sound like. Apart from one of the songs, Tijuana Go, which is a very upbeat, lively song, and I did remember that one, so I was kind of thinking the whole album would follow that pattern, but it doesn't really. Half the Truth is probably the other really good song on here, and there's one this time around, which it's a good song, but it's definitely a throwback to their more alternative rock roots. I'm glad I revisited it. I say it's probably not one I'll play a lot, but now I can play it whenever I want, and who knows whether the record will actually get a spin again. I don't know. Probably a good 6.5, 7 out of 10, I'd guess. But there we go. So that was the first one. Next up, now this is an album I knew I would love, and one that I didn't necessarily need to reconnect with, but again, I don't have a digital copy of it to play when I want, so I was keen to rip this one as well, and this is Exhumer's last but one album now, The Raging Tides. This was in my top 3 of 2016. I was absolutely loved this album. It was a type sticker. Blood red marbled vinyl. Yeah, I was blown away when I heard this. I was new to Exhumer. I just picked up a couple of their sort of 80s releases, and I think this is one of the first brand new thrash sort of metal albums I bought at the time. So Exhumer have been around since the 80s, and this is relentless German thrash metal from start to finish. Every track is a winner, but Death Factory is probably the best of the bunch. I absolutely love that song, and if you haven't heard Exhumer and you want to hear, or you've heard 80s Exhumer, you want to hear what the modern Exhumer sounds like, listen to a Death Factory. It's the bomb. A couple of decent covers on here as well. There's 2 bonus tracks on this LP. There's Forever My Queen, which I think is a pentagram cover, and Hostage to Heaven, which is a Grip Inc. cover. But definitely a band worth checking out if you haven't. Exhumer. The 80s stuff is also top as well. Number 3, this is Heavy Pettin. Now this is, although this is a self-titled release, this is a Canadian pressing. In the UK, this album was called Letting Loose, and has a different cover on it. It has like a window blinds with someone peeking through them. This is a Scottish band. So and my memory of this is it being quite melodic, but when it rocks really quite heavily as well, or heavy for 1983, that is. But it's definitely a heavy metal album, and if you are a fan of early Saxon, you will probably like this. I think obviously their name was something that probably went against them from being much bigger than this. They had an album after this one, which I'm pretty sure was a lot more melodic, and then they kind of fell off the radar and tried to reinvent themselves towards the end of the 80s, but I think they'd already missed the boat by then. As well as sounding a bit like Saxon, there's also a little bit of Def Leppard in there as well in some of the cases when it tries to get a little bit more melodic maybe, but the vocal style is definitely in the vein of Biff Byford. There they are rocking on stage. Tracks on here to check out now. The other thing I think actually maybe put them off is the first, or certainly put me off to start with, was the first 4 tracks. We've got In and Out of Love, Broken Heart, Love on the Run, Love Times Love. Now that's a lot of love for a heavy metal album. Now heavy metal albums aren't really lovey-dovey albums, and this sounds like a lovey-dovey album, but it's really not. Although, well, maybe a couple of them are. Love on the Run, Love Times Love is actually quite a good song. Victims of the Night. I mean, after all the lovey-dovey stuff, Victims of the Night, Rock Me, Shout It Out, Devil in Her Eyes, and Hell is Beautiful is pretty much your standard heavy metal staples when it comes to songs. Really good stuff. So Victims of the Night, Shout It Out, Hell is Beautiful, all really, really kind of rock hard and definitely songs worth checking out. I had this for his VCLT from Blackmore Rules back in December 2016, and it was definitely worth revisiting. I've given this 2 or 3 spins this week. Next up, we have I think this band's from California, if I remember rightly. This is Tsunami, and it's albums like this that justify the whole thing. This thing about me revisiting my collection. I had in my mind that this was more of a melodic metal album, perhaps even a bit AOR, but it isn't. It is classic early 80s heavy metal. It's that heavy metal sound that's it's heavy but without being sort of galloping and frenetic. There's great riffs in here, solos, and really kind of catchy lyrics as well. They do look a bit of or certainly this guy here, Max Load. He does look like he's straight out of a 70s hard rock band. And then they've got the 2 twin guitars, 2 Japanese guys, Tatsuya Miyazaki, who this guy here, I think it's this guy here. Fortunately, I think he died in the 80s, which obviously didn't help the band too much at all. And Tomutaka Yamamoto. I love the sound of Japanese names, awesome. But yeah, so these guys are really cool. The sound though, it's, if you like early Demon, those first 2 albums, and Wildcat by Tigers of Pantang, with a small amount of the melodic side, sounds a little bit Diamond Head as well. This will be in your wheelhouse. Yeah, even the song here, The Runaround, which I believe was the single. I read that it got quite a bit of airplay in the US. So this is 1982. Oh, 1982 originally, but 1983 when the Music for Nations pressing came out. This is MFN number 9. So Runaround it's a slower song and is more atmospheric, but it still has that sort of heaviness to it as well. It's not a ballad by any means. If you do want to check out a song, check out either Revenge or You'll Never Lay a Finger on Me. Absolutely killer early 80s heavy metal, US heavy metal. And lastly, another album which, when I pulled it, again, I couldn't really remember too much about it. I remember showing this in the VC, and I remember it because, sorry, the album is a World War III, and a self-titled album, World War III by World War III. This is from 1985, and it's on Axe Killer Records, a French pressing. But it's another straight-up heavy metal, a little bit more galloping than Tsunami. And it doesn't blow you away. There's nothing in here that's incredibly memorable, but I did enjoy revisiting it. They're a one and done band, but given this is 1985, I don't think it was fast and heavy enough for 1985 when thrash was taking hold and thrash was going one way and metal was going more melodic and commercial the other way. This was still, I mean, if this was released in 1982, it may well have done a lot better. So I guess they kind of missed the boat on there as well. Yeah, I remember talking about these guys because there's the two guys here, Gary Hammer and Dan Hammer. I mentioned about the fact that Gary's nickname was Sledge, so I'm guessing he's the older one that grabbed the cool nickname first. But what I did find out, but I didn't know before, and there isn't a lot of information on these guys online, is that the real names of the bands. They've got metal names, Gary Hammer, Dan Hammer, Tipper Spars on vocals. I mean, to me, that's an American heavy metal vocalist name, Tipper Spars, and John Fitiodoro. I can't read it. Fitiodoro, and they kind of they've got the look, especially Tipper here, and the drummer as well. They've all got the 80s metal look, but Tipper's real name is Tim Stump, and then whereas the Hammer brothers are actual brothers, their real surname is Nagy, so they don't quite sound so heavy metal. So maybe that was the reason why they changed them. But John Fitiodoro, his real name is John D. Teodoro. He went on to join Wasted. I don't think the rest of them had much of a career in metal after this, or music, from what I can gather. Favorite song on here is Call of the Wild. It's, as I say, it's a great 80s metal album. Probably not good enough for 1985, but in 2020, if you are trying to hoover up as much as 80s metal as I am, it's a great album to revisit and get acquainted with right now. So that's my 5 throwbacks from my collection. As I mentioned, I copy all of these to my computer, and then just as a bit of fun, really, I then sort of copy them all to CDs and just make a little cover for them. So I've got World Cup of China there, Exhumer, Heavy Pettin, Tsunami, and World War III. I just do the covers. The CDs are plain. The CDs I will probably never play. I have everything on hard disk and backed up as well, but I've kind of got a box of these now with about 100 or so in, so it's one day I may never have a collection, so I can kind of look back at my collection and have these little mementos. Who knows, we'll see. Thanks for watching. I'll grab another 5 and be back and show you them later. Cheers, thanks for watching.